Welcome in to sportsbookreview.com. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And this is the college football show number 15 for 2021. And we've got a lot to discuss this week. Next week, we start diving into conference previews. We got Conference USA coming up next week, but we are knee-deep in FCS playoffs. We got spring games to talk about. We got NIL bills. We got college football overtime rules. The CFP Committee is talking about expansion. We got a whole lot to hit on. It's not really the offseason. I say it every week. There's always something in this sport to discuss, and my God, we are here for it. So, if you would like to be here for it, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Go ahead and like this video for us if you would so kindly, and jump in the comment section. We want to hear your thoughts on the show. Give us your opinions, what you like for us to talk about, what you don't like for us to talk about, etc. We just want to hear what you have to say. So be sure and jump in those comments. And if you want to talk to us outside of YouTube or whatever, you can follow us on Twitter. I am at GaryWCE.
I'm at Chris B. Giannini.
And you can always email us, Gary at winningcureseverything.com.
And I'm Chris at winningcureseverything.com.
Very simple, right? I like how we do that. Make it easy on you. All right, we've got some news to discuss, and we are not going to make this show nearly as long as last week. So why don't we go ahead and dive into the topics. The first one is spring game recaps, and we are going to start off in Austin, Texas. Now, we're not going to spend as long as we did last week. There was big-time games last week. This go-round, Texas, Steve Sarkisian's first spring with the Longhorns. There's a quarterback battle. Casey Thompson, redshirt freshman Hudson Card, both look pretty good. You don't want to hinge everything on one play, but Casey Thompson leading the first-team offense. He's got Bijan Robinson. He's got all these weapons. They're driving down the field. They're only up by 3, and he's late on a throw and throws an interception that's returned for a touchdown. Hudson Card comes out second half and leads them down the field. Now, obviously, there's a lot more that goes into this. There's 15 spring practices. It's not just one spring scrimmage. But that kind of stuff can get you beat in a game. So you don't like to see that from Casey Thompson. But this is going to be a battle. It still looked like Thompson was the guy that led the team better. But at this point, we kind of have no idea. Like, it's still spring. I know your thoughts on this spring stuff.
Yeah, and the fact that we had really big games last week, it's a very, very loose interpretation of really big scrimmages that teams played against themselves.
Let's move further into Texas. How about that? Let's talk about the Texas A&M Aggies. I know you're high on this bunch this year.
I like them.
I know you like Jimbo Fisher. The buzz around quarterback Haynes King looks legit. He finished 16 of 31, 211 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Those numbers would have been better. Wide receivers dropped 9 passes in this game. Now, they did have Isaiah Spillers and the big tight end and whatnot.
They didn't play. They
had a lot of weapons that were out for this game. Haynes King looks like he's the leader of the team at this point. Calzada looks all right. That's the other guy that's vying for the job. But it seemed like Jimbo was kind of getting on him a little more than he was Haynes King. It looks like King's team. So.
You think Spiller has a chance to be a Dope Walker winner?
Oh, I think he does too. Absolutely.
I was asking because I was looking at some future numbers, which you can't find a lot of like positional future numbers yet. But I was looking at this running back class. He's somebody that I like the offense. I like him. I think
they're going to lean on him a lot with an inexperienced quarterback.
I do too, and I like the defenses in the SEC are kind of going the way of the Big 12 old school.
Oh, very much so. Everybody's trying to stop the spread, and they're not paying attention to the actual running game. And you know, Texas A&M has got some big hog mollies on that offense.
That's what I was thinking. I like that line. I like Spiller. Anyway, we've gotten way off track already.
The defense, I think, for Texas A&M, going to be fine. Going to be fine.
Oh, no. I trust this coaching staff outside of the constant turnover at Alabama. You don't really have, like, consistent coordinators or whatever. This coaching staff I trust more than everybody outside of
Mike
Alabama.
Elko as the defensive coordinator is
Jimbo and Mike maybe are two guys that you just know.
Should we say could we possibly say that's the best duo in the SEC right now?
Yeah.
Like, best coordinator head coach duo?
And it might be in the country, Gary.
It's entirely possible. Mike Elko
is. Tell me the defensive coordinator at Ohio State that scares you. Tell me the OC at Clemson that scares you. In Alabama, the OC and DC change over, more times than I flip my mattress.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right. So I think Elko is going to be a head coach eventually.
I hope not. I kind of like when Dave Aranda is seeing the struggles of doing this.
This is true.
I kind of like as much as I really don't like Clemson, I really respect Venables.
Yeah.
Being able to say, I could do anything I want here, and I don't have to deal with all the extra bull crap that comes along with being a college head coach.
That's true. He just gets to focus on one side of the ball. He gets to hire who he wants.
I
He gets
want
to bring in
Aranda to
whatever
be
players.
successful, but I feel like that's just a different job.
And Elko is making more than Venables right now.
Yes.
I mean, Elko is making what,
these
like
guys.
2.7,
These guys. I mean,
2.5?
and at one point, like Aranda was almost 3. Like
Yeah.
it just like you can make enough at these schools to where you don't have to take that head coach money, unless you think you're national champion worthy and you can get like $8 million a year. But that's a different game.
That's a whole different
Anyway,
ballgame. Speaking of national championships, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a big one. Not going to spend long on it.
Yeah, they
the
won
Tennessee,
one win in the 90s. Was their last national champion?
1999.
Okay.
Hey, might be my pick this year.
Go ahead.
We'll talk about it. But
please do it.
Be
my guest.
Their defensive line looks like they are. Their front seven looks legit, and it's not just from a spring game.
I bet they're amazing.
But they just look a lot better. Tennessee transfer Eric Gray had big moments in this game. All the Tennessee transfers look pretty good coming over to Oklahoma. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Jaden Hazelwood, the number 1 receiver for 247 back in 2019, made some outstanding plays in the spring game. The team looks loaded. We shall see. Speaking of Tennessee, Josh Heupel, his first spring game of the Heupel era, and it was a bonanza of yardage and points and whatever, and it's the perfect marketing tool because they're not going to be very good for a little bit. But can they be fun and exciting? They had 3 quarterbacks that all took a ton of attempts in this game. They took a ton of snaps. The orange and white teams in this rolled up 547 yards of offense in the first half. And that's with a running clock in the second quarter. So it's ridiculous. They'll probably lose games 60-45 this year. But if you're putting up 45 points after what they went through with Jeremy Pruitt's offense for the past 3 years, I think the Vol fan base would be on board with it.
Yes.
I'm totally okay with it.
But it's also really hard to blow teams out that do that, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I said this about Ole Miss back in the Hugh Freeze days before Hugh started beating Bama. And I said it when they got Lane. I said it when Mississippi State got Leach. It's really hard. A team that can score 40, it's just really hard to embarrass them.
Yes.
Like, you're going to be competitive in games. You're going to be in games where people are going to want to turn the TV on and watch it. Like,
100%.
It's going to get eyeballs there. It's going to get people that want to play there. If you can put up points, it's really hard to get blown out.
I will say this. It does remind you of Lane Kiffin coming into Ole Miss, right? Like where he immediately turned that offense into something that was,
and he knew we're not going to win a lot of games.
Right.
But every game we're going to put a lot of points up.
I don't know that Heupel's offense has the playmakers that Ole Miss had.
No. Yeah, they
definitely don't have the quarterback.
They don't have the quarterback, and they don't have the playmakers. But that's something that you can get in a year, especially looking at the transfer portal. But even outside the transfer portal, for years, Hugh Freeze when he tried to win immediately, he went to the JUCO route. And it's what all these guys should be doing if they're trying to win fast.
Hugh Freeze beat Nick Saban with Bo Wallace at quarterback.
Yes. You don't have to have the second coming of Eli.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible to do these things.
Tennessee Peyton. Like, it's just not necessary. There are dudes out there that can play at a high level if you can scheme it up and get enough guys, and you don't have to go out and get incoming freshmen.
Yes.
There are JUCOs that come into major college football every year that turn into stars. Cam Newton was a JUCO guy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Let's not forget.
Well, he was a Florida guy.
Second greatest.
And then he was.
But he came. When did he actually play?
He went back to Blinn Junior College.
How many guys do that? A lot. Well, they used to before the transfer portal. Transfer portal, right? But I just think you can go get guys that are juniors coming in that they're not 18 years old.
Yeah,
they're 22 years old and they know how to play ball.
100%. 100%. All right, moving on from there, we're going to move to Chapel Hill and Mac Brown's bunch. I'm going to tell you. Now, first, it was rainy, it was nasty, it was whatever. Offense was not expected to look good in this, and they didn't. I think I trust the offense. I trust Phil Longo and Sam Howell to be able to put up some points in this offense. The defense is what I was concerned about because obviously the last couple of years they haven't really been able to stop anybody. Their defensive line looks completely different. They had linebackers flying around. Like, they could be actual contenders to Clemson in the ACC this year. I think it is entirely possible because the recruiting is starting to show up. This is 2 recruiting classes now for Mac. Well, 3 at this point for Mac Brown. I think it's starting to show up a little bit. It was rainy, it was whatever, but I'm kind of buying on this squad.
This is why you don't watch spring games, because then you come out and you say random crazy shit like this, and nobody takes you serious after that.
Speaking of not taking seriously, Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss. So you last week said that Ole Miss was gunning for 47,000 people.
I don't think they got there.
I think they might have had 4,700. Now it rained, and it was whatever.
Because it was really cold too.
Yeah, it was not good day.
It was 37 here. That kind of hurts it.
It most certainly does.
Also, they had a big baseball game against LSU that weekend.
Certainly.
I think that you're talking. They're trying to play to Omaha. That took a lot of fans.
Oh, very much so.
If they were playing a no-name team, that would have helped.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I will tell you this. They lost Elijah Moore. They lost Kenny Yeboah.
Yep.
That was their 2 big playmakers from last season. Doesn't matter.
No,
Kiffin and quarterback Matt Corral,
yeah,
they're going to be fine. They got plenty of balls or plenty of guys to get the ball to.
I said this last year. That's the worst talent that Lane Kiffin will have at Oxford his entire career.
I believe that.
I think Elijah Moore is amazing. That's the worst overall talent that team will have until Lane Kiffin is no longer there.
I do believe that.
I don't know who the new guys are going to be. They're just going to be better every year because he knows how to recruit.
Did you see the kid that sneaked onto the field, onto the sideline, and grabbed the fire extinguisher and started shooting it in the air, and all the players turned around and saw him and all started jumping up and down with him? Like, this kid was it was hilarious, but it was awesome to watch because they didn't kick him off the sideline or anything like that. Like, they joined in with it. They made it a party, and like he eventually made his way back to the crowd, but they didn't care, and it made for a pretty fun spectacle, man. So I had fun watching it. Ole Miss, like, they're going to be trouble for a lot of the big boys. Yes. They're not going to beat them all, but they might beat some.
They won't beat them all because that style of football is going to have duds.
Yeah.
They're going to have the 5 interception games like they had in Arkansas last year. Like, that's going to happen, and you're just not going to win that game. They're also going to have games where they are clicking Alabama, and you're the best team that we think we've ever seen in Alabama, and they are right there on your heels the entire game.
Most certainly. Finally, last but not least, we got to bring up Washington State. The only reason I'm bringing this up, they started the scrimmage, not with a coin toss, not with anything like that. It was a snapper duel. Did you see this?
I saw a lot of different things that happened at Washington State this week.
So they met at midfield, and then they turned and faced away from each other, and they walked out. I think it was like 12 yards, and they knelt down with footballs, and the first one to hike it back through the other guy's legs got to decide, like, are we going to take the football first? Thought it was fantastic. We should probably do that all the time. It was great.
Well, so I like Rolovich. You know that. That's the only reason I care about Washington State anymore is Rolo's my guy.
Yes.
I like that the fans that show up to a spring game, we're going to give them a show. I mean, they did like fat guy like calendar shoots and stuff like that for all their offensive linemen and defensive players that were fat guys. Like, I appreciate that they are trying to make it a spectacle because they understand this game is stupid.
Yes.
And people paid tickets for this.
Yes.
So we have to give them something to watch that's entertainment. I have a really big appreciation. I don't know if that's the AD call, if that's somebody else's call, if that's Rolovich's call.
I think it's Rolo's.
But I like Rolo. I'm biased, so I want to give him the credit for it. Outside of that,
I think it's Rolo because I don't believe Mike Leach did this kind of stuff.
Well, no, I know Mike Leach didn't do it. But the question is did somebody suggest this stuff to Mike Leach? And Mike Leach said, go sit in that locker. Just go sit. Not next to it, in it. I want you to crawl in. I want you to close the door, and I'll let you out when I'm ready.
The main reason why I brought this up is, we just talked about Tennessee a little bit ago. Jarrett Guarantano, or Guarantano, however you say it.
I think it's Guarantano.
He transferred up there.
That's right.
And we have talked a lot about him, especially on last year's show. terrible decision maker. It was just
he's just not good.
Right. And we thought maybe the change of scenery, maybe going with a quarterback guy like Rolo might help. He look, JG threw one pass. It was an interception. And on that pass, he hit his hand on an offensive lineman's helmet, injured his hand, was out for the rest of the game. It appears that
they're not going to go with Guarantano.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. It feels like the decision-making has followed him to Pullman.
Yeah, I didn't have to watch the game to know that they probably weren't going to go with Guarantano.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I think Rolovich is a really good quarterback coach.
Oh, he is.
He's got that that Bruce Arians, grip it and rip it style of play. No risk and no biscuit.
The run and shoot.
The no risk and no biscuit. I am not afraid of interceptions because we might throw one interception or two interceptions a game, but we're going to throw 3 touchdown passes that are going to be 60-yard bombs and just break the defense's back.
Yes.
Like I understand that, and I like that about him. You're not talking about 3 touchdowns to 1 interception with Guarantano. You're talking about 5 interceptions to 1 touchdown for Guarantano.
Yes.
He just can't help himself.
Or fumbles on sacks, or holding on to the ball too long.
I'm sure he's a great kid. He's just really struggles at the quarterback position.
Yes,
that's
he does.
what he's trying to do.
It'd be great if he could, find a way to snap out of it and actually learn to play the position well. Don't know that that's going to happen.
Looks tough.
But I hope good things happen.
It's obviously a hard job.
Most certainly. Most certainly. I don't believe Chris or I would be good. Would be quarterbacks.
No.
All right, let's move on from there. Let's talk about Notre Dame and Indiana. They scheduled a series for 2030 and 2031. Now, these two teams are in-state teams. Obviously not going to spend a long time on this because it's games that are 10 years in the future, but they haven't played since 1991. Before that, it was 1958. There's only been one matchup in the last 63 years between these two, and if they don't have a bowl game between now and then, it'll be once in 73 years that these in-state teams are not going to have played each other. Like, one time will they have played in nearly 75 years. How does that happen?
Well, Notre Dame has a very competitive schedule.
Agreed.
Them being in the same state helps nobody. It doesn't benefit anybody.
You're probably right.
It would benefit Indiana a lot.
Very much.
It's going to make a lot of state money go to Indiana, but Notre Dame's not a state school. They're not taking any state funds.
No, you're right about that. Notre Dame is 23 and 5.
Notre Dame has done really smart by they play all their road games in the South or in California out west, or in the East Coast. They go to where all the talent is. Okay. Yeah. And all their road games are just recruiting games.
Well, their road game at Wisconsin this year is actually at Soldier Field in Chicago.
Yeah, let's say it's in Chicago.
They do this all the time.
Yeah, because they're wanting to recruit that area.
It's really, really smart. Really smart. I love the way that they do it. They're 23-5-1 all-time against Indiana. I would imagine that will continue, but obviously this is 9-10 years in the future.
I'd say it's a decade from now. Who cares?
Who knows? If Brian Kelly's still there, I'll be betting on Notre Dame.
I doubt Brian Kelly will be there. I'd still bet on Notre Dame.
I'd still bet on Notre Dame. All right. Next topic up. CFP Committee talks about expansion. Now, let me go ahead and read you the quotes from them so that we have it exactly from them. The College Football Playoff Committee held 2 days of virtual meetings last week. According to a news release, they discussed 63 possibilities for change, which included different models for 6, 8, 10, 12, and a 16-team playoff with a variety of scenarios. CFP Executive Director Bill Hancock told ESPN there will not be a new format this season or next season. The timetable is certainly an important detail, but it hasn't been determined yet. It is too soon to predict the timing. But even if the board decides to alter the format, it may well not occur until after the current agreement ends in 2025. CFP working group of 4 management committee members. So I want to try and explain how this can come to be. So there's 4 members on the working group, right? Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby, Mountain West Conference's Craig Thompson, SEC's Greg Sankey, and Notre Dame AD Jack Swarbrick. They are expected to make a report to the entire management committee about the future format at the CFP's next meeting, which could be this summer. If there is a model that the entire group supports, which will be almost impossible, they will present it to the CFP Board of Managers, and those 11 presidents and chancellors would have to unanimously agree to change the contract before it expires in 2025. Now, this year's CFP games, Goodyear Cotton Bowl and the Capital One Orange Bowl on Friday, December 31st. National Championship game is going to be Monday, January 10th in Indianapolis. December 31st games again. They have had problems with that before. I don't think that this gets talked about this summer or this, April, whatever, if the ratings were not so bad for the CFP National Championship game and really for the playoff games. We have never had a national championship game that had lower ratings than both of the playoff games. Yeah. And yet that's exactly what we had this year.
That's right. Against two, premier football teams.
This is what they had been hoping for the whole time for the playoff was Alabama and Ohio State.
Yep.
And it happened to fall during a COVID season, but it just lets you know the temperature in the room of, hey, we don't really want to see.
And you said the first two games of the playoffs are going to be on New Year's Eve again?
They're going to be on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, that's going to tank ratings as well.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really get a New Year's last year. Man, this New Year's Eve, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, take the over.
Yeah.
Take the over on everything. Everything.
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you. I think there are multiple different scenarios that I would be okay with expanding the playoff. I'm okay with 6. I'm okay with 8. I'm okay with 10. I'm okay with 12. I'm okay with 16. Now, I do buy into that, and we've talked about this. I believe in a 16-team format.
Yeah.
Because
I'm just convinced.
Making it to the playoff is important for all of these teams that typically wouldn't. Now, your Alabamas and Ohio States and Clemsons and whatever that have routinely made it, they are not hanging a banner every time they make a playoff.
No. But listen, UCLA only hangs banners for winning
national championships.
For winning it.
Yes.
Okay?
In basketball.
Yeah. But the same thing, Kentucky and Duke are only hanging them for Final Fours and winning it.
But I guarantee you Kentucky and Duke football would hang a banner inside the stadium if they made the playoff.
But all these other schools, LSU would hang one for a Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Because everybody falls somewhere different in the pantheon of what that sport means. There are worlds of teams that have never sniffed anything like this. If Ole Miss ever got invited as, let's say, the third SEC team in, and then gets the doors blown off
or if
of
it's
them.
16 teams, it could be the 4th or 5th. I mean,
Yeah.
There's no telling.
And then gets the doors blown off of them. That they're hanging a banner.
Yes.
It's going to live in Ole Miss history forever. It's a huge deal.
Yes.
It really bothers me that people think we just can't because it seems like so many teams. Watch the FCS. They're doing 16 right now.
And we had 4 or 5 Missouri Valley teams out of 16.
That's right.
There's 4 of them left.
Because that conference really is better than everybody else.
Yes, there's 4 of them left out of 8.
If the HBC teams played teams played, Missouri Valley isn't getting 4 or 5. The HBCU is probably getting 2 of those spots. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they still found a way to get 16 teams in. And they're doing this shit in the spring. We're not used to seeing football.
I'm with you. It's strange. Obviously,
all the arguments against it are all flawed in the sense of it just seems like too much. That's not a good reason.
Yeah.
Okay?
I agree. Well, especially, it's going to change the perception of it when players start making money from the NIL. When they are actually being paid for their services, then people won't have such an issue with them playing 16 games in a season or whatever it is, right?
But remember that there's only a few teams that are going to play that many games.
There's only 2 teams that would play 15 games in a season.
That's right.
There's only a certain number of teams that would play 14 in a season.
Yeah. It basically gets cut in half every time.
Yeah, so as of right this second, the way it's set up right now, there's 2 teams every year that play 15. There are 2 teams every year that play 14.
Yep.
And then on down the line. So, it wouldn't be 2 that play 14. It'd be however many that wouldn't make the playoff that also made conference. Yeah, all that good stuff. It's frowned upon because there's a lot of people that don't want it to be a 2-semester sport because once you get into January, then you have to start worrying about academics and everything else.
We're already in January, and nobody gives a shit about academics.
No, they
No, they
do.
No, they don't.
No, they do because there are players that don't get to play in bowl games because they were not academically eligible. It's happened multiple times. I'll look up stats on it. But I remember I think Louisville had a lot out for one of their bowl games a couple of years ago, whatever it was.
You're talking about a meaningless bowl game. I assure you that would not be the case if
it was a playoff game.
This was a playoff game.
Okay.
There's nobody in the NCAA college basketball ever not played that started the tournament that he's got academically ineligible. Yeah, the guy hadn't gone to school for a month because he's been doing conference tournaments and then the NCAA tournament.
Now, you and I both agree that we would be totally fine with doing away with conference championship games.
Well, yes, I that's the sacrificial lamb that has to happen. And anybody who says, well, they make too much money, doesn't know how to do math. You don't understand that if you're right now, the Pac-12 gets a conference championship game, and they make almost no money off of it because nobody watches it. But they make some money off. If they were guaranteed a team to make the playoffs, that playoff game is going to make them more money than their current conference championship game.
Yes.
Okay? The chances of them getting 2 teams, because it's 16, it goes substantially up. Now they make even more money.
Yes.
Okay. The SEC, which conference championship game is worth the most amount of money. With the CBS deal, it might not make them up, but it's worth the most. It's going to make the most soon. If they get 3 teams in, they've now outran all of the money that they would have lost in not doing that conference championship game. What are these other conferences, the Big 12 and the Pac-12, losing every year in not getting in the playoff? It has to be more. It has to be a lot more than what they make off their conference championship game.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I would be curious about those numbers. Maybe we should do a little series while we're doing these conference previews.
But it'd be impossible to see what the games are going to be worth because we don't know what the contracts are going to be.
Yeah, and that's why you have to make sure that the CFP contract for a 16-team playoff will make up what they would lose in that conference championship game.
But everybody's got to make the same. So just because Cincinnati finally got in and UCF finally got in, you can't pay them less because they're a lesser team.
No.
They're not used to making much.
So in the NCAA tournament, each team that makes it gets $1.8 million that goes back towards the conference.
That's right.
So this year, Houston made it all the way to the Final Four. Well, that's 4 wins in the well, I wonder if the 5th game count. I guess the Final Four appearance had to count.
Well, yeah, you still get paid just because you lost. It's how many games you played.
Right. So you get your 1.8 million times 5. All of that goes back to the AAC, gets split between everybody else, whatever. So if you've got more teams in it, obviously that's even better. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I am. Maybe we do this. Maybe we go with like a 16 format and we try and explain what would be good and or wrong about that. And then we do 8 the next week and then 10 the next week. And maybe we'll do that. We'll talk about that.
I don't know anything wrong with it. That's the problem.
Well, agreed.
I think all the arguments wrong with it are people who are already biased against it because they're just afraid because 16 sounds too big.
Well, we would have – I would want to come up with a different side of the argument so that we can debate against it.
I've heard a lot of the other side of the argument.
I
know it's fine. I've heard a lot because I like doing that. You know me.
Yeah.
In my political world, I literally listen to extremists on every side and then a lot of moderates too. Like I don't live in an echo chamber. I don't like living in an echo chamber. I'm just telling you, I'd be anxious to hear any argument because almost all of them are just not smart arguments.
Right. It's all things that you can debate
weak.
away.
They're really weak and it doesn't. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Moving on, the college football overtime rules have officially changed.
Yep.
Teams are now required to go for 2 after a touchdown starting in the 2nd overtime. In the 3rd overtime, teams are going to start swapping 2-point conversions. So way less plays on the body. And this all stems from the LSU-Texas A&M game back in 2018, I believe it was. I kind of like it, and I kind of don't like it. Because I think that you were going to see teams win games. I think more teams will be less willing to go for it in regulation, knowing that, all right, it's going to come down to I play and I trust my guys. You know, I'm
okay with all that.
I've been going back and forth in my head. I think I'm actually okay with it.
Yep.
Like I talked myself into
we don't have enough players that play both ways. All I want is we are going to set up your offense and their defense on this side and your defense and your offense on this side. They're going to run their one play. we're going to put a 90-second play clock up there, and in 90 seconds, this ball is snapping. And in 90 seconds, this ball is snapping. So if we go through 8 of these, we're burning through them, baby. We're not going to be here for another 3-4 hours.
Is that actually how this is set up?
No, but that's what I want.
That's the way it should be.
When I become czar of all of sports, I'm going to snap my fingers like Thanos, and that's what we're going to do.
I was like, man, I don't remember seeing any of this.
No, what they're going to do is they're going to pick one side, like they do, and they're going to play from that side. Then we're going to run one team off, and then we're going to run one team on, and they're going to go to commercial between every one of these, and it's going to take 2.5 hours for them to run a play.
Yeah.
And then break, and then run a play, and then break.
Those commercials.
And the announcers are going to they're going to hate it because they're going to, at that point in time, you've talked about so many different storylines.
There's nothing else you can say once you get
just
to that point.
You're just going to be a whole lot of sitting and waiting, and I think it's going to be insane. No. They have to split them up, put a play clock on, and we're not going to commercial until after we've done 3 of these. And once we've run 6 plays, we'll take a timeout. We'll go to commercial. You regroup. Everybody gets their timeout. We come back, and we're running 6 more, 3 on each side.
We ain't coming down to field goals or anything like that at that point. This ain't on the kicker. This is on your offense being able to execute. I'm good with it.
But we're not going to get to that point. I do think that somebody will make a stop and somebody will make a play, and it'll happen quickly.
I don't believe that we will be seeing 7 overtime games anymore.
I just don't want to run guys on and off the field on the same sideline all day long.
Yeah. Oh, I agree because it takes forever.
I think that's going to be really bad to watch.
I do agree with you. I do agree. Hines Ward has joined the Florida Atlantic staff. You and I are both fans of this.
Yep.
Former Super Bowl MVP, was an offensive assistant with the New York Jets in 2019 and 2020. He joins Willie Taggart's staff. I'm okay with this. There's not really an assistant, like an on-field assistant job open with FAU, but he's going to be working with the wide receivers coach. It seems that he really wants to get into coaching and is trying to make up his mind between the NFL and college. Which one would I prefer to do? I think this helps FAU with recruiting.
Yes.
Even if he's not allowed to recruit, you can still sell Hines Ward being there. Anytime you got a former Super Bowl MVP that kids can come and learn from, I think I'm okay with that.
Kids coming from high school now, they were babies when Hines Ward won his MVP.
Agreed. I don't think it hurts anything.
I'll say that. I think it's
only a lot of guys
that get to show you a ring. You know him because you're an adult. You're a grown up, and you saw him.
Right.
These kids weren't born, or they were probably born, but they were babies.
Yeah, no.
I mean, what
the
thing, 12
biggest
years
thing,
ago?
he was an NFL analyst for NBC, so he's been on TV. He's been on CNN.
I like the hire. I like the pull. I don't know that kids care about it as much as we care about it, or we want them to care about it.
I'm not going to say that it's, this is a recruiting slam dunk, anything like that. But I do think that the name is going to matter to the parents. And
that'll happen.
I think it obviously helps out if you say, hey, we got a Super Bowl MVP that can teach you how to get, how to do what he did.
LSU's got Kevin Falk. Kevin Falk is unbelievable. I love him there working with the running backs. I don't think he brings as much value as a recruiter, but he knows how the game is played.
Yes.
There aren't a lot of people in the world that can teach running back position better than him. I think Hines is the exact same way.
Yes. I agree with you.
If he can teach them to be tough like he was, they'll be the best blocking wide receivers in all of college football.
I agree with that. And finally, last news topic, old Bobby Petrino. Now, this was obviously voted on before they got demolished in the FCS playoffs, but he won Missouri Valley Football Conference Coach of the Year for this season. Former Louisville coach led Missouri State to a share of the MVFC conference title in his first season. Of course, like I said, they gave it out before the Bears got demolished by North Dakota last week. But it's pretty big turnaround for him to go from having your Louisville team absolutely quit on you, getting run out of town in a disgraceful fashion. I mean, he went 2-10. 2-10 at Louisville in his last season. The man can still coach. He can still scheme them up, man.
When he's motivated, there are few as good as him.
You have got that right. It was a little bit shocking to see it because I kind of felt like the other coaches and whatnot may not like him. But I think they respect him.
This is the problem. I think they don't like each other. And therein lies the issue is he's an outsider. It's easy to give it to him. He actually did something, and South Dakota ain't voting for North Dakota State. North Dakota State's not voting for South Dakota State's, which that probably should be the guy who got it.
I would think so.
I think he did more with less. Delaware's always good. James Madison's always good. North Dakota State's always all these teams are always good. South Dakota's not usually one that's always.
Well, South
up
Dakota
there.
State's typically like they've been really good over the past decade. They haven't been number one in the playoffs good, but Petrino coming. I mean, Missouri State's never been this.
Well, they've never been this.
Good. So, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. All right, you want to talk NFL draft a little bit?
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to attack this a little bit of a different way. We were trying to figure out how do we relate the NFL draft to a college football show. Now, obviously, it's a bunch of college football players that we just watched, but they will be going to NFL teams. If you're watching a college football show, you want to know how it impacts the college football game as it sits. If you wanted to listen to breakdowns of NFL teams and whatnot, obviously you would listen to the NFL show with Donnie and Kyle. But we found a way. You want to explain how we're doing this?
Yeah, I just basically thought, let's pick every conference. Let's make this simple. Okay, we're going to pick every
P5 conference,
every Power 5 conference, and we're basically going to pick what team in that conference do you think wins this draft or loses this draft
or can benefit the most from it.
Yeah, this isn't LSU had the most players last year, they won that draft. LSU's a juggernaut, and they put guys in the draft every year. That was the best year they've ever had, but it's not outside of the norm of what they do.
Right.
And so this is usually all of my picks are smaller schools. I don't know if you picked any big boy schools or all small schools, or there's schools that you normally don't think of. And I guess it's not smaller. I didn't pick any of the juggernauts or any of the big boy favorites.
I got two that are pretty big.
Okay. What conference do you want to start with?
Let's start with we'll start with the SEC.
Okay.
I took Kentucky here.
Okay.
So I took Kentucky. They had one draft pick in 2016, had 0 in 2017 and 2018. They exploded, had 5 in 2019. That was obviously Josh Allen, that whole class. And they followed it up with 2 last year. Lynn Bowden, obviously a third-round pick, etc. They have 9 prospects that could be drafted this year. Mark Stoops has absolutely built that roster up. Linebacker Jamin Davis, projected first or second rounder. Cornerback Kelvin Joseph, projected first to third round. Offensive line Landon Young, 4th to 6th. Drake Jackson, et cetera, et cetera. They have got all of them that are projected to be drafted. I'd say that they've got 8 guys that are projected to be drafted somewhere in the 7 rounds. If they have 8 guys drafted, Mark Stoops, or even if they have 5.
I was just about to say, you can't assume all of them because that's crazy.
That puts them up to 12. Well, 12 plus, 5, 6, however many. Yeah. It's 12 plus drafted in the last 3 years. Helps kind of prove that Mark Stoops and that bunch can develop players and sets them up for the next level. I think it's massive.
Yep. So Kentucky was one of my choices. I had a couple of choices for every conference. I'm going to go with Ole Miss. I think they have I think in 3 years, so I like to look at drafts in 3 years and 5-year stints.
Yeah.
Let's actually see how good these guys did. They have the wide receivers that come out of LSU or out of Ole Miss are the best in the country in the NFL. The last couple of years, they just are.
Yeah,
Elijah
Metcalf,
Moore gets to
AJ Brown.
Yeah, Elijah Moore gets to headline that. I think there's a world in which in 3 years, if you told me Elijah Moore's the best wide receiver to come out of this draft, today it sounds crazy because he's going to go mid-second round. He's going to go 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th wide receiver.
There's some mocks that have him in the first round.
Yeah, but he's still going to be 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th wide receiver taken. So yes, he's like Justin Jefferson went in the first round. He was the 5th wide receiver taken.
True.
He's the best wide receiver in that draft. Like, I think there's a world where 3 years from now, Elijah Moore's the best wide receiver in that draft. 3 years ago in 2018, Michael Thomas. Nobody said Michael Thomas was the best wide receiver in that draft. Guess what? Michael Thomas is the best wide receiver that came out of that draft. It wouldn't shock me. It just wouldn't. And they've got 3 other guys that are projected. Kenny Yeboah, your boy, he's definitely going to get drafted. They got a couple of defensive players that are probably going to get drafted. I think Ole Miss is getting used to seeing Ole Miss players in the NFL. They didn't have that luxury for a long time.
Yes.
And it's not just players. It's at the premier positions. It's at the positions that you buy the jersey, You get them talked about on like putting a bunch of offensive and defensive linemen in the league is nice for your school. That doesn't bring star power.
Agreed.
Wide receivers does bring. I mean, it's the most diva position there is.
Yes, it is.
It brings the star power. My pick is Ole Miss.
I can get down with that. Let's move to the ACC, and I'm going to start us off with Pitt.
Okay.
Pat Narduzzi's second season was in 2016. He had 5 players drafted in the 2017 NFL Draft. In 2018, he had 3. Then the last 2 years, he's only had 1 each in the last 2019-2020 drafts. For the 2021 draft, they have 8 prospects that could be drafted. We have got 7 of them that are projected to go between the 1st and 6th round. So none of them are projected, loose term, I guess. You got several that are, 2nd to 4th. You got several that are 3rd to 5th. You got several that are 4th to 6th. It's a lot of dudes. Yep. And again, if you show that you can get guys to the league, obviously it helps. And, Damar Hamlin, Paris Ford, these are all names that you should know. Defensive end, Rashard Weaver, Patrick Jones, like Jalen Twyman. Like we've talked about him on our show a lot. These guys helped establish what Pitt is, which is tough-nosed, that badass football team that can upset anybody at any point. I think it's going to be massive if they can get a big number of these guys drafted.
That would be big if that many actually get drafted. I went with Vatek here. Vatek's got 2 guys that are probably going to go in the first round, offensive tackle, cornerback, Farley, and oh my God.
I forget the other guy.
Christian Bearshaw?
Yeah. Dershaw.
And then they've got a safety, Diablo. He'll be 3rd, 4th round guy. Vatek has not been good. They've had a lot of bad press, a lot of things not go their way, getting upset by little teams, not winning big games, not showing up big in big games, finally getting beat by your in-state rival. That didn't used to ever happen. I think they could use a jolt of, we're still here. We're still putting talent in the league. Come play at Vatek. We can help get you to the league. They've got a list of 8 prospects. I don't think there's any way 8 of them get drafted. But getting two first round, man, there aren't a lot of schools that are going to have 2 first rounders picked.
Agreed.
Like that's a rare club.
It certainly helps with recruiting because TCU went through a little bit of a recruiting lull.
Yes,
they had 3 first rounders at one point, and it kind of bumped them back up.
It changed the way you saw the school, and then in 2-3 years, if any of those guys take off in the league, it's a whole different thing. It just catapults and it starts building upon itself. I like Vatek.
I can get down with that. Moving on to the Big Ten. I took Indiana.
Okay, I was about to say, if we don't have the same one here, I'm going to fight you, but we're not going to have the same one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
2017, Indiana had 1 draft pick. They had 2 in 2018. They had 1 in 2019. They had 1 in 2020. They never have a lot of dudes.
Yeah, they're not a football school.
Yeah, it's 5 draft picks in 4 seasons. That's not great. It was a 3rd rounder, 2 4ths, 2 6ths. Yep. In 2020, Tom Allen's bunch had their best season in at least a decade, maybe longer.
That. Yeah.
Even though it was shortened by the pandemic, you all get the point. They have 5 prospects that could end up drafted. Only one of them is a 3 to 5. But if you start doubling, right? Like I think that this could certainly help Tom Allen. Obviously, these players love him.
I just wonder, will they actually get 2 guys drafted? That's the thing.
I think they can. I think Jerome Johnson, the defensive tackle, somebody might be willing to take a flyer on. The center, Harry Kreider, that offensive line played well last year. So, Jamar Johnson, the safety, that's the one that everybody likes right now. Fillier, I don't know if the wide receiver is going to go. They'll probably take a flyer as a free agent on him.
It's a pretty deep wide receiver class. Yeah. If you're not standing out, brother, it's hard.
It's hard. Yeah,
it's hard because this wide receiver class is awesome.
Loaded. But it's going to be loaded every year from here on. Like
the game's just changed.
Yep. And running back Stevie Scott, the 3rd, he's probably free agent. I would imagine.
Probably. Get a workout. So I went with our boys. Northwest.
Yeah.
That's Northwestern. That is the answer. That is the answer. This team has only had 8 first-round draft picks in the history of that school. And there is a world, I fully believe they're going to have 2 first-round picks this year.
Rashawn Slater for sure.
Rashawn Slater is going to be a top 10 guy.
Now we got to figure out where Newsome.
And I think I think he's the second or third best cornerback in the league coming into this draft. At worst, he's top 5. And you know my opinion on drafting corners. It scares me because I don't think you go against good enough talent in the college game to actually test and see, are you that good? But the problem is these leagues seem to not be afraid of that. And they're drafting them earlier and more often, and every year 5 or 6 cornerbacks are taken, DBs are taken every year
in
the draft.
First 2 rounds, right?
And I thought in the first round, and I just thought, all right, I've lost where I think football used to be but I don't know how to grade them. I don't know how to watch them in college and do it. I think there's a lot of guys that are going to go get him. I think he's really talented. I think he's really good. I think he's crazy hardworking. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. And obviously, he's a smart kid, being a Northwestern guy. And then they've got another guy that could go late, edge rusher. That defense has been really good. Pat Fitzgerald's put defensive guys in the league. They don't put a lot. If they get 2 first, it's going to change the way people start seeing Northwestern.
I do agree with that.
Stanford got that. Remember years ago, nobody outside John Elway, nobody from Stanford's ever been drafted. And then all of a sudden, guys start getting drafted, and then picks beget picks beget picks. And it's just the way I thought.
You bring up Stanford. Let's move to the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Stanford is my Pac-12 team.
Stanford's my Pac-12 team, too.
There you go.
So we won't have to double up on this.
So, Coach David Shaw, he's not had the most on-field success over the past few seasons, but in 2017, they had 2 draft picks. They were both first-rounders.
Yes, sir.
In 2018, they increased it to 4. 2019, it bumped up to 6. In 2020, they were back down to only 2. There's 8 prospects this year that could be drafted. Paulson Adebo, the cornerback, Walker Little, the offensive tackle, quarterback Davis Mills, center Drew Dahlman. It's 4 guys that are all projected to be drafted.
Yeah.
I think this helps build them back a little bit, kind of helps show, hey, he can still develop guys.
When you had that 2019 season, that was a really young team. All those guys become juniors and seniors now. Yeah. Now you're a veteran team, and now they go off, and they just and you don't have a whole lot of juniors going out early from Stanford anyway.
Nope. Sure don't.
They had a very experienced class last year. I could see that. Stanford's my pick as well for that reason.
I like that. All right, moving on to the Big 12, and this will be the last one. I went with Texas.
Hey, of course you would.
I had a feeling you would say that. So Tom Herman is gone. The success of this class in the draft can go a long way to helping Sark on the recruiting trail, I think. The reason I say that, Texas only had 5 players drafted in the last 2 seasons. It's 2/3, 2 fifths, and a 7th rounder. Hadn't had a first rounder in forever, it feels like. If they were to double that this season, it helps players believe, again, that they can make it to the NFL from a Longhorns roster, because that's been a thing for several years now. Hey, you go to that mess down there, you ain't ever getting to the league. But they've got a ton of dudes. Joseph Asai, the defensive end, offensive tackle Sam Cosme, Caden Stearns, the safety, quarterback Sam Ellinger, defensive tackle Taquan Graham, Tarek Black, a wide receiver that actually transferred in from Michigan, but he went down to Texas. He probably wouldn't have been drafted out of Michigan because of how bad he played down there. He played okay at Texas. If he ends up drafted, that's good things for the Longhorns. I looked at some of the other Big 12. There wasn't a lot coming out from some of these Big 12 teams, man.
Well, I mean, you're looking at volume of numbers, and I'm looking at the top of the draft in the top 3 rounds, basically. TCU's going to have 2 guys drafted top 4 rounds. They're going to have a first-round pick. Yeah. Trevor McGee?
Yeah.
McGee?
I think
I don't know how you pronounce his name. He's safety, defensive player. Probably too small to play linebacker, but can cover. He's going to be a guy that teams are going to trust to help stop the run and cover these ultra-athletic tight ends that are coming into the NFL league. When you get first-round picks and you're schools like this and you don't always have first-round picks, I think it matters. The other team I was going to look at, this is probably the team I'm going to pick, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is very used to getting first-round picks. They don't do it every year, but quite a few years, they're not akin to it. They're not afraid of it. Tevin Jenkins, offensive tackle. This is a tackle-heavy draft, but he's still one of the guys I think's going in the first round. They've got 3 other guys I think are going by the 4th round. I believe they could have had 2 second-round guys if Chuba doesn't fall as bad as Chuba fell, I think there's some weird things going on there. I think Chuba is just fine as a player, and some league is going to grab him in the 4th or 5th round. He's going to be just fine.
Yeah, he'll be all right. Tylan Wallace, the wide receiver from Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Tylan Wallace is good. He's definitely getting drafted. It's a deep receiver draft, so he might fall farther than I thought. But in a normal league, 2nd, 3rd round.
Yeah, it's like.
But if everybody spends a couple of 1st-round picks and 2nd-round picks on receivers. Yeah. They might take the flyer on him in the 5th round now instead of
Mims from Baylor. Everybody thought, well, he could be a 1st-rounder or he could and he fell to the 3rd round.
Yeah, because everybody who needed receiver got their receiver early.
Yes. The guy from TCU, Trevon
Moehrig.
Yeah. So that's the guy that everybody's looking for from TCU.
Yeah.
All right,
the 1st-round dude.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So I did a few, I did the American because I don't like the P5 propaganda that you spread.
Well, you got
all over the country. I'm really at a struggle here. It's either Cincinnati or UCF. Both of them have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. UCF actually has 8. Now they're not going to get 8. UCF has 2 guys that are going to go 2nd to 3rd round. Okay, maybe one of them falls to the 4th round.
Aaron Robinson, Richie Grant.
Yeah, Aaron Robinson, Richie Grant.
Trey Nixon, wide receiver, got a 6th grade. Jacob Harris, wide
receiver. I don't
receiver,
know that. Yeah, Mixon. Like I said, they've got a bunch of late round guys. I don't know if those guys are going to get picked or not. Cincinnati though, they got Wiggins, they got Hudson. That's another offensive tackle. They've had a great line. Wiggins, another safety. This is they got 2 safeties. Forrest is another safety. Forrest might not get drafted. He's 5th, 6th round. I think these are G5 schools, G5, air quotes, propaganda. They're a Power 6 football team, and they're going to show up in this draft. And when these guys get picked, it's going to help boost the status of these schools for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my lesser than schools, Northern Iowa has 2 prospects that are projected to be drafted, and I did 5th round or further because I think if you get a 5th round grade, the chances of you not getting drafted are you got a pretty good chance of getting drafted. Northern Iowa, I didn't write any of the names down, and Western Michigan had 2 in the top 5 rounds.
That's interesting.
2 teams not expecting to see it all.
Yeah, really did not expect that. Coastal Carolina's got 2 guys that look like they will likely get drafted. C.J. Marable, the running back.
I didn't do
Trevon.
Coastal I put in with your UCFs, Memphis's. Like if you didn't have Tulsa, if you didn't have 4 or 5 guys, I kind of moved on from you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because there's a lot of teams that have 2 or 3 that are typical quote-unquote G5 schools.
Well, I mean, Louisiana's got 2 guys. They're both they're running backs that swapped in and out.
That's right.
And they both got like 5.6 grades. Which,
but the problem is therein lies the issue with the draft is when you see both of these guys got swapped out, it didn't matter who touched the ball. They ran for a ton of yards. Somebody at these leagues that make large sums of money is going to say, you think that's the system?
Probably.
What happens if I drop this guy in the middle of the Jets offense? Is he going to look like that? Or is he going to look like all the other running backs that we've had the last 5 years?
It's like, can he play on special teams?
Because that's the problem with having 2 dudes that do the same thing in the same offense is are you a product of something bigger than you?
Entirely possible.
And when you're at that lower tier, like we don't question that at Alabama. We don't question that at Ohio State or LSU or Clemson or Auburn or Florida or any of these other places. But when you're at that lower tier and something stands out, it's a little bit of you got to ask yourself, why is that standing out so bad?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Anyway,
that makes sense.
That's what I thought. That's what I looked at. I like
that. I'm glad you brought it up.
Interesting way of talking about the draft.
Well, I think maybe we can actually talk about it. The recap next week, kind of in the same vein.
Well, yeah. Once we see who gets taken, who doesn't.
Yep,
it's
going to help
football,
somebody.
Who wins and who loses in the draft.
You've got that correct. All right, we're going to move on to another fun topic before we discuss FCS. Who is the ultimate 2021 X Factor for each P5 conference? Not going to spend a long time on this because some of these we don't even know if they're actually going to be starters or not. But I
was trying to get to my FCS.
Your article.
No, I was trying to get to my FCS Scores.
Yes, the schedule.
There we go.
All right, so the ultimate X factor in each P5 conference. You want me to start us off?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll start with the SEC. And in the SEC, I'm going to roll. I've got 2 names for each. Should I just do one?
Sure.
And then you'll do one, I guess?
Yeah,
that's
fine.
Okay. All right. I've got Haynes King, quarterback from Texas A&M. I think that A&M is a quarterback away. King showed little like spurts here and there where he was really, really good, super athletic. He doesn't have the arm that Calzada does, right? But I don't know that you necessarily have to. If you can get out of trouble, if you can find the open guy, it doesn't have to be super accurate so long as the offense predicates itself to that.
That's right.
I think if Jimbo has a super athletic guy that can find open receivers and doesn't turn the football over, I think A&M is a legit playoff contender again this year.
I've been saying that forever. My guy was Spiller.
Yeah.
But because I don't know enough about the quarterback position, you're talking about an incoming freshman that's never taken a snap here. But there is a guy on that offense that I trust. And I think Jimbo's going to trust him as well. When they get into trouble, he might not be handing the ball to him, but dumping the ball to him. A lot of screen passes out of the background, getting in an open
Spiller showed
field.
he could catch last year.
He can catch it.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be the scapegoat. He's going to be the security blanket. We use the word security blanket. The security blanket is I'm scared, I'm afraid, I'm going to do this. This is I'm in trouble. Who am I calling? You don't go get your security blanket when you call.
That's true.
You get in trouble. You go
Spiller,
find
Spiller's
somebody
going to
to
be
get
the
you
playmaker
out of trouble.
Yeah.
You ever watch Yellowstone? You never watched Yellowstone.
I hadn't watched it yet. I've been told that I need to.
By me. There's a guy on there named Rip, and Rip is the problem solver. Okay, Rip is the guy you call when you get in trouble, and he makes either things disappear or blow up or whatever. But he fixes your problem. He just makes it go away. I think Spiller's going to be the guy to make things go away.
I can get down with it. My other name for the SEC, Tywone Malone, defensive line for Ole Miss. If they can stop the run, Ole Miss can be really, really good. So
yeah, but I don't know that one guy's going to do that.
Yeah, I think he could kind of be the leader of the defense, but I'm with you. ACC, Mackenzie Milton, quarterback from Florida State.
100%.
He's the X factor for that conference.
We have the same name here then.
Okay. They've been in no man's land for quarterbacks for years at this point. Milton should be comfortable running Norvell's system. Obviously, he was at UCF, ran a similar style of up-tempo passing offense where they just move the pocket, find the open guy, and they're 90-0, nonstop. If he can truly be a leader, Florida State still has talent all over the field. Like, take any one of these smaller schools, even at the ACC level, and ask them if they would trade rosters with Florida State, and 100% of them do it. Outside of Clemson and Miami, 100% of them do it because there's a ton of talent on that roster. If Milton is the leader, he can get that bunch reorganized and headed in the right direction. I think that's an easy one.
Okay.
And so my other name was Tony Grimes, cornerback from North Carolina.
Well, I only have one. It was absolutely going to be Milton.
Mackenzie Milton, yeah. North Carolina, like if they can stop anybody on defense. Now, I think the front seven is going to be really, really good, but the secondary, still kind of young. Grimes, upcoming sophomore, true sophomore. If they can stop anybody, North Carolina is going to be a force to be reckoned with this year. Moving on to the Big 12, I have got David Ungwegba, linebacker from Oklahoma. The reason I say this, I think that Oklahoma can be a national championship contender. I think they can win the national championship this year. They have upgraded their defensive line. They have upgraded their linebackers. Their secondary is interesting. We shall see what happens there, but their front seven is set up to be able to beat Iowa State. I think that their defense is set up to be able to stop. Obviously, offense, always going to be able to score points. Like, that's always going to happen. The defense under Alex Grinch in his third season as defense coordinator looks completely different than it did 3 years ago. If they're all built up and all that, we didn't get to see them in the playoff last year.
Yep.
Obviously, they blew the doors off of Florida's JV squad, but I think that this Oklahoma team can be special. can he lead this defense to the promised land? You know, if they can get to the top 20, they are a legit national championship contender. So I'm kind of buying high on Oklahoma here. I'm all in on them if they can do it. Who's your guy for the Big 12?
It's your guy from the Big 12 from last year. It's
Brock Purdy?
If Iowa State is going to be a real competitor, Brock Purdy has to be in consideration for the Heisman.
Yeah, okay.
No, if he's in consideration for the Heisman, Iowa State will be a legit competitor.
Yes.
I
think
the playoffs.
They've got like 90-something% returning production this year. Brees Hall is going to be a big deal.
He is going to be the linchpin. Not that he's the weakest link, but I think he has the lowest ceiling. I think
the highest floor.
I think he's got a high floor, but I also think he's got a pretty low ceiling.
I think
he needs to explode through that ceiling. You talk about X Factor. I need him to be a lot better than he's been to elevate his game, to elevate the rest of the guys around him. But if he does that, I think that team goes to places they've never been before in Ames.
My second name on this was Casey Thompson or Hudson Card from Texas. Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw what Thompson was capable of doing against Colorado. I mean, he exploded in that bowl game. Under Sark's offense, like, can he pick it up fast enough? They've still got more talent than anybody in the league, including Oklahoma and Iowa State. Can you get it all wrapped together? Can you take what Sark is trying to do? I don't know the answer to that. If they can, he's whatever quarterback wins that job is going to be the guy. That's going to be the X factor in this conference. Moving on from there, the Pac-12. We've only got two more here. Pac-12. I went with Anthony Brown.
Okay,
the quarterback from Oregon. Now, obviously, quarterback is always going to be an X factor.
I've picked all quarterbacks except for Spiller.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
look the freshman that came in for Oregon, Ty Thompson. He's got all the hype. But this is Anthony Brown's job. Like, it absolutely is. The Boston College transfer is entering his second season with OC Joe Moorhead. If he can make some of the big-time runs and throws and expands a little more than what he was doing at Boston College, stays out of the injury bug and whatnot, the Ducks can absolutely be in the playoff hunt. That recruiting bunch that they have done over the past however many years, being in the top 10, top 12 every single season, in the Pac-12, that's significantly better than anybody else has been doing. So they can get into the playoff race easily, so long as they have good quarterback play.
Well, mine's a quarterback as well, but it's the right quarterback, and that's my boy Jalen Daniels.
Jalen Daniels, okay, yeah.
Arizona State is going to be a special. I think this is going to be a special year at Arizona State.
You know,
I'm all in on her.
Yeah.
I'm all in on this whole team.
I'm all in on her.
I think the way they have put this team together, I think they have not great talent, but good talent.
Yes.
All over that team. I think he's special. I just think Arizona State's not going to be one of these teams that can win year in and year out. They're not going to be competing for the Pac-12 year in and year out. They're going to do it once. Then they're going to lose some guys to the league, and they're going to fall off, and they're going to have to rebuild, and 3-4 years later, they'll try to compete again. And this is what they're going to do. I think this is their window this year, next year.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
And if they're going to do it this year, he has to be the guy. He has to be the guy.
He has to show up, yes.
If he gets hurt or if he lets down at all, it's over. They
lose the window.
They don't have the chance to be that.
Yeah, okay. My second guy was Corey Foreman, the number one recruit in the country, defensive lineman for USC. Obviously, Graham Harrell's offensive coordinator job has saved Clay Helton for 2 straight seasons. Keaton Slovis, has played great, whatever, but it's Corey Foreman, the defensive lineman, and it's not close. Because if you can get pressure on the other team's quarterback, if you can create mayhem, if you can find a way to get stops, if you're USC, you got all the talent in the world, you can be in this playoff race the same way. The same way as Oregon. So, now, I'm with you. I don't really trust them. I don't trust USC. I do like Arizona State a lot. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Moving on, the next one is the Big Ten.
This is the one I had the hardest pick of trying to think who this X Factor is going to be.
I've got 2 guys, both quarterbacks.
I don't like my pick. Is there a world? There's a world where my pick might not even be the starting quarterback when this season's over. I don't think that's going to happen. But
Well, go ahead and give me yours first.
I got Graham Mertz.
Okay.
Wisconsin. He started the season off before they went into the COVID protocol, and he looked like the best quarterback we'd ever seen.
He played one game and
he played one game against a trash opponent, and they thrashed the hell out of them, and he looked unbeatable.
Hey, who was that trash opponent?
I think it was Maryland, wasn't it?
No, I think it was Michigan, wasn't it?
Oh, it was Michigan. Holy crap, it was Michigan. I was going to say, it was a team that only won like 3 games. It was a bad team. That's right, it was Michigan.
It was Harbaugh.
Yeah. I think then he didn't play football for like a month and a half.
Yeah, it was a month.
Okay. It was a month.
It was 4 weeks.
And then he didn't look good the rest of the time. I think if this guy can be anything close to what he was in that first game, we hadn't seen a quarterback look like that in the Big Ten that didn't play for Ohio State in a decade.
It's been a while.
Maybe 20 years, okay?
He did look like he was the full package. I wonder how much, because he was one of them that actually caught COVID.
He actually caught it.
Who knows what effect that had on him,
So I'm just saying he's the guy he might not be the X factor because there's a world where if he just doesn't look good, he's not that. If he is the X factor, he's the most interesting player to me in the Big Ten.
That makes sense.
That I think is a super impactful player.
He can turn Wisconsin into a Big Ten title contender.
Yes.
100%. That makes sense. And if he's not playing well, then Wisconsin will go 7-5, 8-4.
They're going to struggle. Yes. But he is the guy that can make that team the difference between are we playing in Indianapolis or not.
Mine is similar.
Okay.
Mine is so I got 2 guys. I had a difficult time between them. The first one, Michael Penix Jr.
So I thought I didn't want to go him because I kind of went, I don't know.
It seemed too easy.
Yeah, I kind of went chalking some of these other ones of like there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer, and I think he's the right answer, by the way.
Penix, like he was fantastic last year against Penn State and whatnot, but some of those wins that they had were a little fluky.
Okay,
just a little bit. They played really well against Ohio State in a loss, but then Penix ends up.
I want to defend the flukiness. When you're learning to win at a program that's not used to winning in football.
Oh, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. You have to win that way first to be able to.
I think that's how you win games.
Yeah, it gets you confidence.
Is yes, winning begets winning and losing begets losing. At some point in time, you need the ball to bounce your way. You need a call to go your way. And it just seems to happen, and then happens again, and then happens again, and then the next thing you know, you've got a winning streak, and you've got a winning philosophy, and coaches are getting pay raises, and everything just seems to pile on top of each other. I don't really fault folks for winning in fluky ways.
No. I'm not faulting Indiana for that. What I'm saying is
it's got to be more than just flukes.
If Michael Penix Jr. comes back from this injury and is anything close to what he was before.
I hope he does. I hope he's healthy.
This could be an Indiana team that wins, 9 games
He's
this year.
Crazy fun to watch.
That we could have 9 Windiana this year. It could actually happen.
Yeah. But there's 2 reasons. One, I thought he was the answer. I was pretty sure you're going to pick him. But also I kind of thought that was chalky. If you wouldn't have picked him, I would have for the first time talked about 2 guys. The other thing is even if he is the best he's ever been, can they beat Ohio State?
No.
Can they even go to
But I'm talking about winning 9 games. I'm talking about going 9-3.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about
I just want you to be able to at least compete for your conference championship.
So my second guy, the guy that I had a lot of trouble with, was Sean Clifford, Penn State quarterback. His third OC in 3 seasons. Kurt Soraka last year did not work out. The Minnesota offensive coordinator jumped over. He and James Franklin butted heads. That didn't work. They got rid of him. They bring in Mike Yurcich.
Franklin seems to be a pretty difficult guy to get along with, but for some reason is like always seen as like a very easygoing head coach.
Yeah,
like Harbaugh, everyone knows he's an asshole. Saban, he's an asshole. Like these are really like disagreeable people.
Yes.
Why is Franklin always seen as like
he's always given the pass?
Yeah, always given a pass for
because
not
he's the
being
cool
an
guy.
ass. Because he is an ass. He's hard to do. He's disagreeable.
Yeah, but he's known as the cool guy. He's the guy that gets along with all the players.
You get to be. That's been my problem my whole life. So I've always been the ass, but I've never been cool.
I think that's both of our problems. I think that's 100% both of our problems. Things have not gone well for Clifford at all.
Not at all.
But 4 straight wins to end the 2020 campaign. It was highlighted by playing mistake-free football and made some pretty massive plays in those games. It kind of looked like things were turning around a little bit for him. But, and now, obviously, his competition, Will Levis, is out of there. Now, they've got other guys they brought in, but Clifford
I think the job is his. Guy. I do think the job is his. Is he...
Can Juricic turn him into something big time?
That he hasn't been yet.
Exactly. Yeah, and you never... I mean, Joe Burrow, the same thing happened. And so we have this one shining example of it happening like one time in the last 3 decades or whatever.
In the history of the game, we've never seen this before.
Right. I'm not expecting him to turn into Joe Burrow, but this is another offensive coordinator coming in. If this guy can push the right buttons, you never know. And if Clifford can kind of, grow up a little bit, not make the devastating interception, not throw that, not miss wide open receivers, not hold on to the ball too long, all these kind of things that maybe – then he could absolutely be the X factor, because that's one of the biggest things that Penn State's been missing.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. Give me Mertz and Penix all day long, all day long. I really do hope Penix is healthy this year. I was worried to pick him, although I don't know what that injury is going to look like, and is he? He's probably going to come back and play, but is he going to come back and play, or is he?
I mean, a big part of his game is the athleticism and whatnot. So
he needs to move.
Yeah, he's got to be able to move. I don't know. I mean, everything that has come out appears to be fine. He's going to be all right.
I kind of hate myself that I use so many quarterbacks, but when you're an X factor, I find it very hard for a defensive player to be an X factor. Yes. I love defense. It's very hard for a defensive player to be an X factor because you can just take the ball away from them by moving to the other side of the field.
Yes. And now, what we could have done, I think running back, you can't really go with running back. I think your X
factor. The only reason I went with Spiller is because that is a freshman quarterback coming in, and I do believe he is the leader of that offense in that locker room and in that huddle. Probably not. But probably some big offensive lineman. That's a senior.
I think Spiller's a part of that.
That absolutely is going to be the leader of that offense, but neither here nor there. They're not cool or as fun as Spiller. So.
Agreed. Let's talk some FCS playoffs. Right, we'll do our round one notes. Underdogs and favorites went 4-4 last week. Split them up with 5 overs and 3 unders. Now, the difference between the games was massive. Had 4 games determined by single digits. Had 4 games decided by 3+ touchdowns. 4 of them were just massive blowouts, and 4 of them were basically right down to the wire. Monmouth and Sam Houston State, the projection on that was 31-25 Sam Houston. Sam Houston ended up winning 21-15. So it was right on the number. It was right on 6. They built a 21-0 lead and then gave it up and had to hold on for dear life. They got an interception at the very end of the game that saved the game for them. Otherwise, Monmouth would have been moving on over the number 2 team. But yeah, I mean, at Jefferson, rushed for 95 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sam Houston linebacker Markel Perry had 8 tackles. It was a good game all around for Sam Houston, but not the showing that you want in
I didn't
in week
win
1.
A lot of my bets. I won several. I don't remember exactly. I was either close to 500 or
I went 2-3 and 1.
A little under.
I went 2-3 and 1 on mine.
Okay.
VMI at James Madison.
So I lost this one.
That was It
was tighter than I thought it was going to be.
I took the under on it as well.
James Madison.
And it went over. Yeah. So James Madison was favored by what, 15?
Yeah.
Something like that, and they won by 7. And that was only because VMI scored 14 points in the fourth quarter, and, it's what it is. Juwan Hamilton opened the scoring in that one, a 99-yard run for the longest play from scrimmage in playoff history. Kind of a big deal, James Madison had 509 yards against the first-time playoff qualifier. So, they had a big-time advantage in this game.
For them to not put up as many points to have 500 yards is insane.
Yeah, 31 points. It scored 31 to 24. Yeah, they had an 11-minute, 40-second time of advantage. Time of possession advantage.
I got you.
Davidson at Jacksonville State. This was a bloodbath, 49-14.
I stayed completely away from this one.
Yep.
And I should have played the
OBC champ scored basically at will.
They scored. I was about to say they almost hung a 50 on them.
2 offensive touchdowns in 7 seconds in the second quarter, heading into halftime, and that put the whole game away. It was 14-7. They scored a touchdown. They kicked like a pooch kick that the guy didn't come up and grab. Jacksonville State jumped on it and then threw a touchdown the very next play. 7 seconds of game time, 14 points, ball game was over. So, Holy Cross.
I hit this one
at
both
South Dakota
ways.
State. Same here.
I got
felt
the
good.
double on this one.
So, South Dakota State ended up winning by 28, 31-3 here. They move on, and look, I mean, it was ridiculous. They scored on 3 straight possessions in the first half. They kept Holy Cross out of the red zone. They posted a 439-198 advantage in offensive yards despite playing conservatively. Jackrabbits racked up 281 yards on 34 carries. That's 8.3 yards per carry. If you are doing that, you are blowing the other team off the line of scrimmage.
Well, and we talked about this. The books just are never, ever, ever going to make a 30-point line.
No.
They're just not. And until they're going to get into the mid to low 30s, this was a game where you could just say, hammer this under. We're not sniffing 40 points here. We said, either you said it or I said it, Holy Cross might not score.
Yeah.
They might not score. I don't think South Dakota State, I don't think my Jackrabbits are hanging 40 on them.
No. Well, Holy Cross, so the crazy part about them racking up 281 yards on 34 carries, 8.3 yards per carry, Holy Cross on the season was only giving up 44 yards rushing a game.
Yeah.
Like
we thought they could stop the run.
Yeah.
They couldn't stop anything.
No, they could not. No, they could not. So, South Dakota State obviously moves on. Eastern Washington at North Dakota State. North Dakota State ends up winning this one 42-20. This game was 20-7 Eastern Washington early. And North Dakota State just ran the ball down their throats over and over.
Weird game.
422 rushing yards, and they scored the last 35 points of the game.
Yeah.
North Dakota State looked like the North Dakota State of old in this game. They rode with Cam Mitchell, the freshman quarterback, the whole way. Don't blame him. He looks much more in control.
Well,
I think he was nervous early on.
It's over now.
Yes.
This is their guy, and this is their guy for good.
I believe so. The
So
projection
he becomes a junior, he will be their guy.
The projection was North Dakota State 28-24, and it ended up being North Dakota State 42-20. So the overhit, North Dakota State covers, et cetera, et cetera. Missouri State, the Fighting Bobby Petrinos, lose to North Dakota, and the Fighting Hawks 44-10. This was never a ball game.
Nope.
The line was about 7. Wasn't close.
Lost on this.
Wasn't close. We weren't the only ones.
Old Bobby.
That line by Saturday was down to Missouri State +4. I got it at +7.
That's insane. Yeah, I had it +7.
Everybody was on Bobby Petrino.
Well, I was too.
And to think about it, like North Dakota had not played in 35 days before that.
Yeah.
And they showed up ready to roll. They were ready to rumble. So, moving on, Southern Illinois, they get the win at undefeated Weber State. And this was the most exciting game of the day.
Yeah.
I don't think it was close.
That was the only fun game out of all of them.
34-31, Southern Illinois ends up winning. They were a 3-point underdog in this game and end up with the win. Or I'd say that. I got them I got Weber State -4. I really thought Weber State was going to win this game going away. But I was wrong.
I picked Southern Illinois in our show. I didn't play this game, though.
The quarterback for the Salukis, Stone Labanowitz, lobbed a 4th down pass to the back of the Weber State end zone. It came down in Branson Combs' hands for a game-winning 8-yard touchdown with 51 seconds remaining. All 11 Salukis possessions began in their territory, and 5 of the 6 scoring drives went at least 11 plays, and the other one traveled 75 yards.
That's insane.
It's nuts. Absolutely nuts. So
that's a lot of moving the football.
Yep. And the night game before I came over to your house to watch the UFC fights.
This was rough to watch, man.
Oh, it was a gross ball game. Delaware hosted Sacred Heart and won the game
7-7 for a lot of the game, and it was not a fun defensive battle.
It was 9-7 at the half due to a punt going over the punter's head for Sacred Heart. I mean, it's just a botch snap, like just ridiculous.
It was pretty bad football.
Yeah,
it was pretty bad football.
I mean, it was pretty nuts.
Delaware's going to look a lot better next week if they want to hang.
The defense looked okay. I mean, they did not give up a play that was longer than 16 yards.
Gave up 10 points. I mean, that's really good in college football today.
But against Jacksonville State, you better show up.
I was just about to say, this is not Sacred Heart coming in.
Nope. So they got to go down to Alabama.
So what I think is, this tells me I'm going to get a really good number for Delaware.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
You don't think I'm going to get a good number for him?
I will.
It's not out yet.
No, it is actually.
Hang on. I checked before the show started.
Nope. SBRodds.com, my friend. Right there.
Hang on.
Jacksonville State.
Get there.
At Bet Online, it's -1.5. Jacksonville State is -3 at Bookmaker and -2 at Heritage right now.
It's not as good as I want it.
Nope. Well, because everybody loves Delaware, man. Like it's a legit thing. Delaware's a good team.
They just played like crap. Give them more points.
You're like, please give them more points.
Give them more points.
All right, let's move into the preview for this weekend.
Go into it.
Only 4 games to talk about, so not too bad. We'll start off with North Dakota State sitting at 7-2 at Sam Houston. They got to go down there and knock this thing out. It's on Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. Big ESPN. So we're finally
getting some TV time for these guys.
The projection is North Dakota State 26-21. The analytical line is North Dakota State -4.5 with a total of 47.5. Okay. The actual line is North Dakota State -3 at all these books right now, and total is 46.5, 47. So it's like right on the analytical
right
line.
on what the odds would say it would be.
The odds obviously say it's -3. The analytics say it should be like 4.5. Look, Sam Houston, 14-0 all-time in home playoff games. However, since 2011, the Bearcats are 0-4 in the playoffs against North Dakota State. Monmouth held the ball for almost 40 minutes against Sam Houston.
Yep.
North Dakota State has a chance to keep the ball away from that offense.
I agree.
That is the way that you win the game. So, if I was going to bet this, I would roll North Dakota State. I'm probably going to.
I'm probably going to as well. It scares me a little bit.
Yeah, because they haven't been great, but now that they've got that quarterback in, like they're trusting him, they're rolling with him. I think that defense is good enough to stop Sam Houston.
Yeah, and the rest of that team is. There's a reason you roll off championship after championship after championship.
There's 35-1 in the playoffs.
The whole team is really good, not just the quarterback. And so, I'd trust them. It's a small number, especially under a field goal. At a field goal, under a field goal, I'll take it.
I'll take that as well.
I do think by the end of this week we're over a field goal though.
You think so?
Yeah. I think after watching last week's games, people are going to make a lot of decisions this week off of what they saw last week.
That makes sense.
We're in the playoffs. You actually really care what happened the week before more than a regular season thing.
That does make sense. That does make sense. All right, moving on. Same time as the North Dakota State game, Delaware, the Blue Hens, heading to Jacksonville State Gamecocks. So you got Hens against Cocks. It's a chicken game. I'm down with it. So, it's 3 p.m. Eastern time. This one's on ESPN3. So this is the only one that is on the streaming service.
Of course. The one I want to watch.
Yep. Again, Sunday, May 2nd. All of these are on Sunday for whatever, I guess for programming, I would assume. I don't know. Jacksonville State favored in this game analytically by 2.23 points.
So the number's not too far off from what that is.
Nope. The number, as of right now, we just said
1.5 to 3.
1.5 to 3. So you got a 1.5, you got a 2, and you got a 3. And the number, analytically, is -2.23. The total here, it sits at 41 at the books. It is 40.5 as far as the numbers go. Jacksonville State, that Zion Webb kid, the quarterback, absolutely legit. Now, Delaware's defense was awesome, but they ain't seen nothing like these athletes for Jacksonville
The defense
State.
they're going to have to play is keep him off the field.
Yes.
The defense they're going to have to play is we need to hold this football.
Yep. And
we need to score as many times as we can. I know that's an understatement, but you got to put points up when you're playing against Jacksonville.
Take advantage of the opportunities when you get them.
Yeah.
I would probably roll Jacksonville State. I don't know that Delaware is used to coming down to Alabama on a Sunday afternoon in May.
I don't know that it's going to matter.
I don't know, man. It's humid. Like it don't ever
humid
get humid
up there.
It don't get humid in Delaware.
Have you looked at a globe? Delaware is like 5 minutes from the Atlantic coast. Yeah, it's still humid. Not necessarily in May super hot, but I promise you, if you go to Delaware, it's on the ocean.
Humid. Yeah.
They have.
I got a buddy that lives in Delaware.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure that you don't know that it's humid there?
I've never been to his house.
My wife lives in Cleveland, and that's a lake and not an ocean, and it's humid as hell.
I don't think it's the same humid though, right?
Yes, humidity is all about moisture, not temperature.
Oh, agreed.
It does not matter if it's hot or cold. It's still breathing water outside. You're still walking around like you're in somebody's mouth.
I don't believe that the combination of the heat and the humidity, because down
This
here
is
it feels
not-
like a wet blanket.
Yes,
up there,
in July, it feels like a wet blanket. It's literally the first weekend in May. 4 days ago, it was 37 degrees here.
that's a valid point.
So let's-
what's the weather like down there? On
So
Sunday?
let's figure out before we just assume that it's August in the South. Like, we don't have a lot of bodies of water that make it humid here.
That's a valid point.
It's just everybody has swamp ass, and that puts the humidity in the air, and that's what makes it so horrible.
Let's see. Hold on.
That's
I'm
that
pulling it
Mississippi
up.
education for you right there.
You better believe it.
You just sweat a lot.
That's
It
a
begets more humidity. Winnie, that's the word, begets today. I don't know why. I've used it 4 times.
Hey, it works. It works. Begets is a good word. It is a
Not
good
trying
word.
to sound smart. I assure you of that.
All right, here we go. Saturday or Sunday. 78 degrees, partly
sounds like
cloudy, 25% chance of rain.
It sounds like a perfect spring day.
It kind of does.
I bet it's not a whole lot different if you went to Delaware.
Okay, so weather will not be the reason why Jacksonville State wins this
Jacksonville
game.
State might blow them out.
I don't
It
think they're
won't
gonna
be
blow them out.
because of the weather.
I think it will be because they are a better football team.
That's
what I'm going with.
That is. I'll give you all that plausibility. I'm going with Delaware. I once fell in love with a girl from Delaware.
Yeah.
From the University of Delaware.
Yes. North Dakota Fighting
care about
Hawks are headed to James Madison this weekend.
So we're getting really good games in this round.
Yes, we are.
Like, really good games. This is the game I'm actually most excited to watch out of all of them.
I think this will be so on
This
paper.
is on Real TV.
Yes, this is on ESPN2 at 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
I just want Real TV. Clicker. I know what that channel is. It's 209.
This is so James Madison, the number 3 seed. They've been ranked number 1 ever since North Dakota State got beat. I am real curious about this because James Madison is the favorite. They're favored by 2.5.
I thought this was going to be a bigger number too.
Agreed. The total is 52.5.
It was not a bigger number.
The analytics would tell you that the total on this game should be 43.26. So we're talking about a 10-point difference here. And the analytics have North Dakota State favored by like a point, 22-21, even on the road. So I kind of want to pull the trigger and take the Hawks.
It's probably the best bet. I mean, the analytics have been pretty good on this.
Yeah, they have.
I don't want to do that, but
I'm going to take the under.
I like James Madison. That the analytics being 10 points,
That's a little strange.
that's a lot.
Well, yeah, we had several of those last
Like, we've
week.
seen a touchdown before. We don't really see 10 points difference.
Agreed. I'm going to roll with the under for sure.
Yeah. I think that's smart.
But at the same time, like I
like
do
that I get
wonder.
to watch this game, but I kind of wanted to bet on it, but I don't. I'm probably just going to have to pick a side and put money on it and not worry about if I win or lose.
Yeah, that'd be the smart way to do it.
I like North Dakota, but betting against James Madison's scary. Like, that really is scary.
Yes,
It's
they're a
weird.
legit
I'm not
team.
afraid to jump in front of a freight train when it's Clemson or Alabama or Ohio State or some of these other big boy schools. I know that James Madison's a freight train.
Yeah, and now
But it scares me to
It
jump
came
in
down
front
to
of
7
them down
points
here.
last week, but I wonder how much of that was, hey, we're up by so many points. Let's.
Well, yeah, they dominated the game, and the team came back in garbage time, scored 14 points, and got the cover.
Yeah, got it within 7. That's rough, right? I'm going to take North Dakota. I'm going to take them to win the game because we have seen crazier stuff happen this year.
100%.
Like-
If North Dakota wins this thing, it won't shock anybody.
No. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there is a
I think that's-
possibility.
I think that's the right play. Man, I don't know why betting against James Madison scares me.
There's a possibility that the Final Four that we
Is
have
all
we have
all the
3
Dakotas?
three Missouri Valley
Yeah.
schools: North Dakota State, South Dakota State.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
That won't shock me.
All right, I'm gonna take North Dakota.
Okay.
You thinking the same?
Yeah. I don't like it, but I'm going to do it.
All right, let's close out with the last game, and that would be the night game.
So we finally get a big-ass spread, and it's the one favorite I love.
Southern Illinois headed to South Dakota State. Now the
Pisses
Jackrabbits.
me off.
Jackrabbits
Pisses
are
me
currently 15-point favorites, 14.5 some places.
114.5, 15-point favorites.
Opened at 14.
This is the one I was hoping was a for a 7-point. Give me a 1 touchdown game.
When I printed out my sheet, the total was 56. That is now down to 55 in a couple of books and 54 in another.
I think it's going down. I think it's going backwards.
The analytics would have you believe that it should be a total of 48
I was just about to say.
Yeah.
I think in all the South Dakota State games, you're just going to be able to play the under. And their defense is really good, and the analytics just aren't catching up. And they don't have one of these freight train offenses that puts up 45, 50 points on their own.
Well, so here's the thing. This is a rematch of a game from just a few weeks ago, March 20th.
Yeah, not too long ago.
South Dakota State beat Southern Illinois 44-3. So, that was 47 points at that point. The Salukis, they're 5-1 against ranked teams this year.
That's almost 10 points. That's still a touchdown less than what this total is.
Agreed. But if Southern Illinois is actually able to score in this, because in that game it was,
but hang on now,
it was
you
4
can't just
turnovers,
add points to the end of it. If Southern Illinois scores, that's a few possessions that South Dakota doesn't get. That's why the total doesn't change a lot, even though the spread might,
I'm with you. I would still probably take the under here,
but all South Dakota State games, I'm just betting the under blind because I don't think the books are going to come close to the number.
Yeah,
I think this defense is really good.
Yes, and the running back, obviously Pierre Strong. We've been talking about him since the preseason,
and that's how you keep. That's how you hit unders, is you run the football.
Yes, you run that clock.
Well, you and I used to love watching football before our teams
run the ball, stop the run.
Big 12 teams. Yes, you run the ball, and no one does that better than South Dakota State, which is why they're my favorite team.
Yeah,
that's not it.
South Dakota State, by the way, ran for 300-plus yards in the first matchup. They only gave up 200 yards total offense to Southern Illinois. They forced 4 turnovers in that game.
How many points?
44-3. And now they are expected to win this. The analytics would have you by 14.13.
I wonder what I can get a Southern. See, this is the problem is you're not finding a lot of books to put a whole lot of like prop bets or extra lines out. I wonder what a team total Southern Illinois game would get.
It'd be about 17. The projection is 31-17.
That's what I'm saying. They know, but that why the projections are because they refuse to make a 40-point line.
That's true. That is true. I don't know. I'm thinking about staying away from it.
No, I'm not staying away from any of this.
You're all over South Dakota State.
South Dakota State and the under, and if I can find an Southern Illinois team total, I'm going under that.
I can get down with it.
I love this team. I really like this team. Now, their games aren't fun to watch the last couple of weeks because they've just been murdering people.
No, but they're big boys.
Like they're not playing competitive football, so it's not fun to watch. But
they're just mashing people.
And I don't think this game's going to be competitive either. Like
I don't think
it's going to be a whole lot like it was a couple of weeks ago.
The matchups after this, by the way, the winner of this game will face the winner of Delaware and Jacksonville State. The winner of James Madison and North Dakota will face the winner of North Dakota State and Sam Houston. So we could get a battle of North Dakota with North Dakota and North Dakota State, and we can have South Dakota State and Delaware or Jacksonville State, and I think we're going to have a good Final Four.
I do think the Final Four, all the games are going to be great.
I think they're going to be fantastic.
I think the North Dakota State James Madison games, North Dakota James Madison game is going to be awesome.
So 2 of these are on ESPN2. Yep. One is on ESPN, the other is on ESPN3. Next week, the Final Four games, ABC.
Holy crap.
ABC. So, in the national championship game is going to be on ABC as well.
That's awesome.
So, I'm stoked for it.
What crew are they putting on there? Do we know that?
Dave Pash and whoever else that I think does a lot of the SEC games.
Okay.
But that's a pretty big deal. I think Greg McElroy is going to be involved.
I was wondering, is there any way they get Herbie out of the...
No. He's still hanging out in Nashville.
Pull him out of the closet for this.
He's hanging out in Nashville.
What do you think coaching. What do you think it costs to pull him out of the closet for this? A lot.
I think they'd certainly have to re-up the contract. I don't know, probably another few $100,000. I don't know.
For a couple hours worth of work.
He's a college football purist. He might be willing to do it for pretty cheap.
Yeah.
But to pull him away from his kids, you're going to have to pay.
Come on, man. His kids are like 19 and 20.
No. He's got younger ones that are.
Does he have younger ones? Yeah. I thought he had 2 kids that were both at Clemson. Well, I know
he's got 2 at Clemson. No, he's got like 5 boys, doesn't he?
Oh hell, okay. Now you know more about his family than I do.
How
I know he's got 2 kids at Clemson, and I'm gonna tell you this: I'm a 38-year-old man. I don't want to hang out with 20-year-olds ever again the rest of my life.
Let's see. He's got 4 kids. 4 kids. So
okay, so if he's still got young ones, that's different. They're still fun to be around.
Yes.
They haven't turned into complete. And I'm sure his boys are great. All right, I
Most
just know
certainly.
who I was when I was 20, and then I see 20-year-olds that I deal with now in life, and I think, yeah, I don't want to deal with them at all.
I can buy that.
At all.
I didn't want to hang out with myself when I was 20.
No, I was about to say, yeah, I knew who I was.
I believe it. All right. I think that's going to wrap up the show. Pretty long one. Had a lot to get into, but my God, we are moving into conference previews next week. We're talking Conference USA, and we're going to have a whole lot of other stuff to hit on as well. Hopefully you will join us. Make sure that you do by hitting that subscribe button. Make sure you like this video. Again, jump in the comments, or if you want to reach out to us outside of YouTube, you can always do that on Twitter. I am at GaryWCE.
I'm at Crispy Giannini.
And you can always find the website, sbrpicks.com/NCAAF. Anything else we need to hit?
That's it, brother.
That is it. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you continue to do so. So, with that said, for sportsbookreview.com, I'm Gary.
I'm Chris.
And we will see you again next week.